bad does it really get in Charlotte during the summer months? If you're thinking about relocating here, you should probably know what it's like to live here during our most extreme season. So I have some insights from some local Charlotte transplants about what summers are really like. We're going to talk the humidity, we're going to talk the hurricanes, the cons, and get into what the lifestyle is really like in the summer. Let's jump in. So generally speaking, our weather in Charlotte throughout the year is pretty mild, but I think most people would agree that summers are going to be our most extreme season. But what's misleading about our summers is that if you look at the average temperature, it really doesn't look that bad. So July and August are our hottest months, and the average temperature is between 70 to 90 degrees. Leading about that is it doesn't take in consideration the humidity, and that's going to be the most difficult part of our summers, hands down. Humidity levels in peak summer can get up to 70% in Charlotte. By comparison, New Orleans, which is notoriously humid, gets up to 79%, and Arizona, which is notoriously dry, gets up to 25%. For example, it's July right now and it's 87 degrees outside, but the real feel is 96 degrees. So you can tell the humidity makes a huge difference. But one thing that I've learned working with so many people who relocate to Charlotte is everything is relative to where you're coming from. So I asked some locals on Charlotte's Reddit page what they think of summers in Charlotte, and pretty much unanimously everybody said it's really hot and really humid. They also said compared to other southern cities, we're not as bad. And I absolutely agree. I moved here from Miami and honestly summers were a breeze for me, no pun intended. But if you're coming from somewhere that maybe doesn't have a lot of humidity, like somewhere out west, it can get you getting used to. But on a positive note, I did have some clients recently relocate from Arizona, and one thing that they pointed out is, unlike Arizona where it is hot all day and all night, here in Charlotte we do get a little bit of a reprieve when the sun goes down. So peak heat of the day is between 12 noon to 5 to 6-ish, and the temperature will start to drop once the sun goes down. But don't get me wrong, it's still humid, but you do get a little bit of a reprieve. The other thing you'll want to note is how long our summers are. So winter ends the end of February, beginning of March, and this is when the trees start to bloom, it becomes really beautiful outside, and the weather stays pretty nice pretty much through the middle of June. And then from the middle of June until the end of September, it is really hot. But on the plus side, the end of September through pretty much December, the weather is really mild and really nice. So while we of course have a couple of months of intense humidity, personally, I think the trade-off is worth it because the rest of the year is pretty mild. So the other thing that you might not be used to if you've never lived in the South are the random sporadic rainstorms. It can be beautiful, bright and sunny outside, and then all of a sudden, bam, you're in a torrential downpour. It's also not uncommon for it to be absolutely beautiful and sunny outside where you are, and then a couple blocks down the road, it can be pouring rain. So you can actually sometimes see a divide where the rain starts and stops. But luckily, the rain does come and go pretty quickly, and it's not common for it to rain for days at a time or all day long. And the humidity does dry it up really quickly. It also brings kind of a nice cool down when it's really hot. So I wouldn't necessarily consider this a con. It can be a slight inconvenience, but you really do get used to it. You'll just remember to bring an umbrella with you or be okay getting drenched occasionally. I will give you one con that I'm so glad a Redditor brought up because it is so true. People here in Charlotte drive really crazy when it rains. I don't know if it's because we have so many transplants or maybe it's because the paint on our roads are kind of hard to see when it rains, just to give the benefit of the doubt. But whatever the reason, we do have some really chaotic drivers here when it rains. And just a little insider tip that everyone here in Charlotte knows, if it is raining outside and you have somewhere to be, leave 10 to 15 minutes early because you will without a doubt end up in traffic or behind somebody that's going 20 in a 70-mile zone. So another topic I find a lot of my out-of-town clients want to know about are hurricanes and tornadoes. So while the coast of North Carolina does get hit occasionally, luckily we are far enough inland that we really don't experience significant hurricane damage. Now we absolutely will get a few rainy days if there's a bad hurricane, but the last hurricane that actually caused serious damage here in Charlotte was back in 1989. And even though we do have tornadoes here in Charlotte, they are pretty rare. So there were only 4 reported tornadoes in Mecklenburg County from 2012 to 2022. So it's not something that we really worry too much about. But I will say one thing to be cognizant of is when we do have a storm, really be cognizant of the trees because we have a lot of really big, beautiful old trees here in Charlotte. And unfortunately, when it storms really bad, you will have limbs falling, and then on a rare occasion, you can have a tree uprooted. So this is something to specifically be cognizant of when you're looking to buy a house. Make sure you don't have any of these big old, beautiful oak trees right on top of your home because it can cause some serious damage. And by the way, if you're new here, my name is Milena. I'm a local Charlotte realtor. I work with people all over the country, all over the world even, who are looking to buy a house or sell a house in the Charlotte area. If you're thinking about making a move, please don't hesitate to reach out. Here's all my info. It's also down below in the description. Please like and subscribe and leave a comment. Let us know what questions you have about living in Charlotte. So you can't talk about summers in Charlotte without bringing up the pollen. So because we were fortunate enough to experience all 4 seasons, we do get a pretty significant pollen season. So March and April are going to be the worst months when all the trees start to bloom and everything kind of comes back to life, is when you're going to usually experience the most. But several Redditors actually said their allergies are worse in the summer because you have the tree and grass pollen. So a lot of people will preemptively take allergy medicine before the season starts, and that usually helps. But I will say it really is so dependent on the person if you're going to have bad allergies. So I grew up in Southern California. I have the worst allergies in the world when I'm back west. but out east I virtually have none. So really it's just so dependent on the individual. So allergies aside, the one thing that I find to be incredibly annoying about the pollen is there is a certain time of the year where it gets everywhere. So it's going to create this yellow dust that's going to cover all of the sidewalks, it's going to cover the lawn, your lawn furniture, door handles, literally everything it's going to cover. And weirdly enough, houses in Charlotte built before the 1980s are going to rarely have garages. So if you're one of the many people that don't have a garage, come pollen season, your car will be covered in pollen. So you could go and wash your car and then a few hours later it is covered again. Now luckily this part of pollen season only lasts a few weeks to a month, so it's not too bad, but it is something to get used to. So what is the lifestyle like in Charlotte during the summer months? So in summer, we are pretty lively, whereas I think in the winter months, we get a little bit sleepy, but summer is really active. You've got a lot of festivals, you've got a lot of block parties and events. You have all of the Pride festivals, Juneteenth festivals. A lot of neighborhoods will throw regular block parties with vendors and live music. You've got a bunch of farmers markets, sports events, rooftop bars, tons of alfresco dining, and a lot of our neighborhoods even have community pools. So they're only going to be designated for the people in the neighborhood, so there will be an HOA fee associated with it. But most of the master plan communities will have at least one, if not several pools. Even townhomes and a lot of the uptown condos will have rooftop pools. So you definitely have a chance to get away from the heat. But even that aside, you have our lakes. So we have 3 lakes here. We have Lake Norman, Mountain Island Lake, and Lake Wiley. And while our lakes are not huge on commercial entertainment, like you're not going to have any big boardwalks on the lake, you're not going to have a lot of retail and even a lot of dining. We do have a few waterfront restaurants that are really great, but it's more so for activities. So you've got a lot of people that go boating on the lakes. You've got a lot of kayaking and canoeing. You can go tubing down the Catawba River, which is a whole lot of fun. We did that last year and had an absolute blast. You can also go swimming the rock quarry in Marsville. So there really is a lot of opportunities to get away from the heat. And then you'll of course have the Whitewater Center. So this is a massive outdoor sports facility that is right on the Catawba River. They have tons of activities. You can go whitewater rafting, zip lining, hiking, and even if you're not a very outdoorsy or active person, it's still a lot of fun because they have multiple restaurants and bars. And they do a free concert Thursday through Friday in the warmer months. It's a whole lot of fun. It's at their outdoor amphitheater and it gets really busy, so it's a really fun place to hang out. But one thing that you're going to notice a lot of people do in the summer is take quick day or weekend trips. So I have never lived in a city where people go on so many trips, but we have just such a great location. So you are only 3 to 3.5 hours from some of the best beaches on the East Coast. You've got all of the beaches by Charleston, like Folly Beach and Isle of Palms. You've got all the North Carolina beaches, like Wrightsville and Carolina Beach. And you also have all the beaches on the Outer Banks. And even though that's a little bit farther, those beaches are absolutely beautiful. But to be totally honest, in the Southeast, it can get so hot in July and August that the beaches sometimes are not refreshing. They can actually be kind of miserable when it's super hot outside. So what myself and tons of Redditors commented they do, what a lot of people here in Charlotte do whenever it's really hot, is they go to the mountains. So we have tons of really cute mountain towns that are only an hour and 45 minutes away, and the temperature difference can be quite substantial. And also a lot of them are gonna have lakes and waterfalls. So it's just a really fun way to take a little break from the heat. And even if you're not an outdoorsy person, you will still have fun. There's so much to do in these little towns. It's one of the big perks of living here in Charlotte. So there you have it, everything you need to know about the summers here in Charlotte. I hope you enjoyed this video. Once again, my name is Milena. If you're thinking about buying a house or selling a house in Charlotte, please don't hesitate to reach out. Here's all my info. It's also down below in the description. I look forward to connecting.